Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading The Infinitely Curious Woman by Charari. Chapter 2 Night. Sakura is 17 when she loses a mentor that never was. Being on the road is an entirely new experience, and it's sad that it still isn't worse than her last few months in Konoha have been. She doesn't have much on her, just her usual clothes, 3 spare sets, her precious scroll, medic pouch, and some general supplies. They run fast, and it's not only because Sakura knows that Ambu follow them, but because the color slowly comes back into her life, and she positively sparks with nervous energy, erratic and wild after spending too much time in hibernation. Uchiha Itachi is, as far as somewhat unwelcome company goes, a very pleasant travel partner. He is quiet and keeps to himself, respectful but uncannily sharp in a way his brother never was. It's easy to be cordial with him, and if the rest of his associates are anything like him, she doesn't see herself regretting her decision. Logically, Sakura is aware that she wouldn't have been punished forever. Eventually Tsunade would have returned her to the hospital, and maybe even, with some restrictions, given her back her lab. But for Sakura, every second was 1 second too many. She would have committed suicide. She is sure of it. And she can't help but think that Tsunade has known as well. Maybe that's why she let her go. Sakura left the note on her desk in plain view and absconded through the window just a few precious seconds later, before the blonde returned to her office. If she really, really wanted to cage her, she could have. She simply chose not to. They crossed the border into rain soon enough, and true to its name, there's rain, plenty of it. It's dark and dreary, but something in her throat feels lighter as the water runs down her arms and soaks her to the bone. She can feel her heart give a little skip. Sakura always loved rain ever since she was a kid, and it must be destiny. It's nothing but biology after all. There is a genetic marker for her water affinity in her DNA, however dormant it may be. The village itself is absolutely nothing like Konoha. Maybe that is its charm. The elder Uchiha guides her into the castle steel through a seemingly heavy-set gates that are opened with a ring on his hand. It's imposing and grand, and perhaps somewhat a little too full of themselves. But she knows she will either leave the city as an ally or as a corpse. What waits for her on the other side is a color-contrasting partnership of stoicism and beauty, intimidation and elegance. Sakura looks and feels like a drowned cat, but the interior she's currently standing in is surprisingly warm. Uchiha nods at the two, and then, in a move Sakura never expected, takes her coat and absconds with it, hopefully taking it somewhere it's dry. It's the only one she has. What follows is a part interview, part small talk, followed by an invitation she knows she can't decline. When they tell her of his old lab and how it's hers if she wants it, she finds herself oddly twitchy and doesn't know if it's anticipation or disgust, and with a clarity that's been missing for her life for months, she accepts it. In the end, She always thought loyalty for the sake of a village a rather silly idea. Before she can properly settle in and take up residence in her room, she's led to a different place, down various flights of stairs into the very bowels of the fortress. The woman, Conan, explains to her that her unprecedented medical expertise was the initial reason for her recruitment, a long time before they took note of her other ventures. It is for this reason that she is here. She tells her to consider it a small entry test. The room they enter looks half like a lab and half like a workshop. There are wooden parts strewn all over the available surfaces, and at least 10 variations of the same puppet, with crimson hair and empty eyes. Vials filled with different substances line the walls, and there's a faint hum in the air, accompanied by a raspy, irregular, bubbling noise. As Sakura steps inside at Conan's behest, the source of the noise immediately becomes obvious. Attached to the left wall with heavy wiring running across the floor and into the ceilings is a massive tank filled with green fluid and a body. Her own interest piqued, she moves closer and gently places one hand on the glass surface while studying the person inside. "He's beautiful," she says, studying his features with something akin to reverence, taking note of his soft chin, curved jaw, straight nose, his heavy-lidded eyes, and fine bone structure of his face, and the strands of crimson hair, rendered nigh colorless by the green contrasting them, as they gently float around his head. He is suspended by nothing, just quietly sleeping with his eyes closed and lips slightly parted, body resting in the fluid like a perfectly preserved corpse. "His name is Sasori," Conan replies, and Sakura's memory stutters and stops. She asks if she wasn't supposed to be dead. A small hum her only answer. The so-called hard container that his former partner snatched from the puppet body rests on a table next to the tank, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out where this is going. "I can fix this," Sakura says, feeling his own heart soar upon hearing the words. She hasn't been able to fix anything in a long time. It's not a terribly tricky process. It's this kind of thinking that sets her so apart from everyone else. Sakura knows this, has always known this, is fully aware that taking half a heart and seamlessly rejoining it with its other half is a feat only she can accomplish. She can't stop her fingers from caressing the organs as the chakra floods it and makes it beat even outside its host. She is completely and utterly memorized for a single moment as she watches the heartbeat and listens to the sounds it makes, perfectly in tune with contracting and relaxing muscle. There's blood all over her fingers, but it doesn't matter much. Sakura takes another second before gently, almost lovingly, placing the heart into an open chest cavity and rests her naked fingers over the wound, closes her eyes, and works her magic. She has a small audience of two, Conan and a man in an orange mask she hasn't officially met yet. She doesn't need to open her eyes and watch to know that underneath her hands vessels connect, veins long and reach for each other, muscle builds and stretches. Blood begins to flow as the heart picks up the slack. Nerves fuse with each other and electrical signals begin to pulse through the system. tenketsu are flooded with energy and light up in a soft blue glow. Life builds, moves, and finds a way. Her chakra reaches into the deepest depths, cycles and spins in tune with his, carries chakra and rebuilds, wakes up the lungs, kidneys, and other organs, finally encourages pale skin to grow and close. The only evidence of her work was a bloody handprint on his softly rising chest, like an artist painting the canvas. The last thing she does before letting go is sending just a single spark through his nervous system straight to his brain. She knows exactly when it connects. Watches the sudden shudder of his shoulder, hears the small gasp, and sees everything, and sees his eyelids flutter to open and to reveal bright amber eyes, somewhat glassy from sleep, a delicate warm shade of molten gold shone on them. "Hello," she says. "I'm Sakura." She is welcomed into the fold after that. Meets a man that's half human and half shark, a cannibalistic human-plant hybrid, a foul-mouthed immortal zealot, his eternally grumpy and frugal zombie partner, Toby, who seems much more clumsy and out of sorts than earlier, a teenager with a penchant for blowing things up and getting formally introduced to Itachi and Sasori. Most of them have pleasant lives and a let's live kind of attitude, except for Hiran, who she religiously avoids, and Sasori, who seems like he doesn't know what to make of her. These people are not her friends, but she doesn't need them to be. She has a lab, and is given a generous amount of leeway in what kind of supplies she requests, and what she does with them. There are no rules as long as she doesn't harm a member of the organization, sabotage their goals, and share the fruits of her research with her colleagues. Sakura is cagey about sharing her notes, explains that except for her, no one can actually use them anyway, and explains her reasons as concisely yet informatively as possible. It works out so she can't complain. For the first time in ages, her boosters go back into a proper fridge. She has the proper equipment to work with, and it takes hardly any time before Kuzu dumps a corpse in their lab, soon followed by another. 2 weeks later, she's exactly where she left off months ago, and all it does is reinforce her belief that she never needed Konoha as much as Konoha needed her. Their numbers are uneven, which causes Sakura, without a ring or a mission partner. She is quite happy with both. She suspects the reason for it is just a general mistrust and a desire to keep her near. She doesn't know much about the other members, save for Itachi, but the circumstances surrounding his defection from Konoha aren't so enlightening, as some people obviously wish they were.
Since Tsunade never officially acknowledged Sakura's experiments and unlawful conduct with corpses, there was no controversy or big outcry. For most people, it's as if she simply woke up one day, packed her things, and left. She's not sure how Tsunade sold her departure, and if she never shared what really happened. But what it means for Sakura is that she doesn't appear to have much reason to hate her village. Lingering loyalty is suspected, perhaps even expected, and while that may be true, it's also incredibly misleading. She doesn't care about Konoha whether it thrives or dies. It's all the same to her. Be that as it may, her current situation gives her time to explore the base, and after some respectful inquiries with Conan, even the surrounding area close to the forest. That bit of leeway is a godsend. What with Sakura surviving off takeout and being absolutely useless as a cook. She gets a monthly stipend, so as long as she doesn't go insane with her lab supplies and purchases, there's a comfortable amount of food, a second cloak, even some makeup. She tries a few things, but eventually settles on a bright red, slightly winged line on top of her lids, along with the faintest amount of rosy lip stain. She gets her split ends taken care of and grooms her hair until it's silky and fanning out behind her, with some of it falling into her face. Kisama takes one look at her and laughs. Sakura thinks he's making fun of her, except Sasori considers her long and hard, and Toby, jokingly, in his subtly deranged manner, offers her senpai's ring. She doesn't understand and decides to ignore him. Sakura quickly realizes that she's going to be left to her own devices most of the time. There are always missions, which means one or multiple teams are out there, committing crimes and capturing Biju for a reason she doesn't know and hardly cares about. She doesn't interact with the others much outside of treating injuries, except for Itachi, who sees her whenever he returns from a mission. Working with him is incredibly fascinating. A large part of the journals is dedicated to dojutsu, especially the Sharingan, and now she has a living specimen to work with. The man is going blind and suffers from a truly vicious case of chronic pneumonia. The latter is easy to treat, with regular appointments erasing the illness bit by bit. The blindness, on the other hand. Sakura spends 3 hours just analyzing his eyes and the pathways connected to them, reads and transcribes his genetic code, spends many more hours matching sequences to function, and tries to suss out the flaw in his makeup, the reason for his eventual blindness. It takes her weeks and it drives her insane because all of that is time she could have spent on her research instead. Yet, she can't exactly complain, so she won't. Also, she'd be a liar if she claimed the work was unsatisfying. She asks Itachi if he has DNA samples of his family to compare with, which sends him into a long contemplative silence before finally giving the tiniest nod. He offers her a small pouch that holds 3 tiny vials, strung together with a simple piece of string. In a rare show of consideration for someone else, she makes sure to take nothing but a tiny drop of blood, so the makeshift necklace still looks the same. He is noticeably warmer towards her after that. She sits at the breakfast table, sipping on her tea, with her eyes comparing the specific sequences of Uchiha Fugaku, Uchiha Mikoto, and Uchiha Sasuke, and Uchiha Itachi. The obvious similarities show the close family relation, but the sheer number of variables and dormant traits make her want to claw her eye out. What she seeks could literally be anywhere. Her peace is interrupted by the arrival of Deidara and Sasori, followed by Kisame and an unusually peppy Toby. 3 out of 4 ask her what she is looking for. Her brief explanation suffices in losing their interest. Toby doesn't talk anymore, but makes the impression of being interested in what she's doing, so she revisits an old habit. Years ago, when she had started studying under Tsunade, her issues with memorization were easily solved by her picking apart whatever she was focusing on and running it by the blonde, explaining the matter to her in detail, which later often helped her find new ways of looking at any given problem. So, this is what she does. She pats the chair next to her, waiting for Toby to sit down, and then starts talking. She tells him about Itachi's blindness, circles various base pairs, highlights the summaries, and draws a line over the irrelevant information. He sits still and listens until she's done, then hums loudly and muses about how Itachi's eyes can change shape to look even prettier, and wonders if the others could do that too. Toby is a fucking godsend. It isn't until much later that she realizes just how incredibly convenient his comment had been. It's a breakthrough. A conversation with Itachi later, Sakura can isolate the problem within the unbelievably tiny and almost invisible pathways that form the Mangekyo Sharingan. Once the internal scarring and chakra blockage have been isolated, she can clear and mend them, even if it exhausts her chakra, causing her to pass out. A spur-of-the-moment decision makes her put effort into strengthening the pathways, so the slow build-up of scar tissue doesn't impair him too much, which is the final straw that sends her into unconsciousness. Not long after, she wakes up in her bed and goes to get some food because she's starving. He finds her with a takeout box from her favorite noodle place in AIM. Sakura positively devours the offering in thankful silence. He retreats soon after, leaving her with nothing to do other than wandering around the base. What she really wants is to get back to her research, but her chakra is still recovering, the pool of Naruto's chakra being frightfully unsuited for any sort of delicate work. She ends up taking another nap, dreaming of a low, raspy chuckles, the sound of clinking bottles, a faint whiff of lavender battling a hint of mint for dominance. Her dreams are strange. She has never given them much thought, but lately there's a pattern that doesn't make much sense. What makes it even more vexing is that she's unable to find a basis in reality for any of what pops up in her dreams. This obviously keeps her subconscious busy. No one in the base smells like mint or lavender. She can't match the laugh she sometimes hears to any of the members. Sake is a rare treat, and many of the other sensations she recalls are completely absent from the place she inhabits. She's had a touch of insanity before, and wonders if she's going down the rabbit hole again. At least, she doesn't hear voices yet. Still, Sakura tries to avoid going to sleep. At least, she makes rapid progress with her latest host. Nobody can tell her where exactly the sample had come from, but it is thoroughly fascinating. The human host rejects it, violently, and completely until it's ruined. Pathways burned with matching scarring all over its body. She tests the same chakra on a rabbit that just goes up in flames, suddenly and spectacularly. She's never admitted to letting out a loud screech in surprise, drawing the attention of a nearby Daedra, who promptly proceeds to lose his shit and laugh at her attempting to extinguish the rabbit corpse. What's really interesting is that the fire simply won't stop. She has to carry a burning rabbit onto the roof, only to be disappointed when even in the rain, the flames still burned. She's this close to having a fit and launching the cursed mammal into the sky when Itachi joins her to shed some light on the situation. He has no idea who the sample's from, either, but the flames that don't die out, Amaterasu, Sharingan technique. She goes back to studying his eyes, and he lets her. Amaterasu is a tricky beast. Likely the goddess, it's named after its exclusive and simply frustrating to grasp. The first flaming rabbit is not the last, and she has to explain the inextinguishable animals to Conan. Being stuck like this is somewhat mortifying, especially when everyone else thinks she is attempting some sort of demonic ritual and her offerings are getting spurned. Hidan especially gets a great kick out of this. She's supposed to be a genius, damn it. The simplest explanation is that this technique cannot functionally exist without a Sharingan to harmlessly channel it. It is pure, volatile power that either needs some aspect of the Chia Dojutsu to work, or just the immense assistance it provides at basically free cost. When it comes down to it, the Sharingan is an incredibly potent focusing iris. The powers that are unique to each mutation are random pickings of dormant traits, but what makes them all work is the way the Sharingan can take an entire waterfall and funnel its sheer mass and power through the world's tiniest hole. Plenty of sleepless nights rule out her former hypothesis. There's no genetic dependency. What she needs instead is a focusing iris. Tsunade's chakra control is in the 99th percentile, which makes her in the top 0.2% of the known shinobi population. Sakura is at a natural 100%. She can do things with chakra no one else can. That makes her the best and only source for any eventual biological focusing iris. It's a highly hypothetical game that she plays. She has no idea to believe that it is indeed possible, and maybe the isolation is getting to her and driving her insane. It's always a possibility. Extracting and purifying her chakra was easy, a process she has completed countless times before. The next step is irritating. Her oldest fight, curiosity against morality, is a constant tug of war, with morality losing a little bit of ground with each year that passes. Sakura doesn't even want to bother with this, but the fact of the matter is that she cannot test this on herself. Last but not least, because she doesn't want to burst into flames. She finally reaches a stage where she requires live test subjects, and the voice telling her that she's different and they are not the same, and she'll never be him, is slowly but steadily fading out of reach. Kakuzu is the unexpected coroner that helps her out. Bounty collectors usually only ask for heads. It's the same thing for rabbits, really. Sakura thinks as she stabs a syringe into the gagged man. She's strapped to her examination table a short while ago, with her other hand resting on his forehead, carefully monitoring his chakra network. If he dies to her or to Kakuzu, it doesn't matter. A death is a death, and like this, at least she doesn't hurt innocent people. The former Takinin goes for high-profile targets only. Rapists, murderers, arsonists. Surely they can take a little bit of pain for what they put harmless civilians through. She tells the man to mold chakra in his fist, and he does. His natural chakra control is only barely average. The ease with which he complies with her orders makes it obvious that it works. And not only that, her chakra, when infused in others, doesn't actively help with control. It's simply far easier to control. It bends to the will of its host, taking shape and form at a speed suggesting that even basic thoughts are enough to make it obey. It's the oddest thing, its structure, all fluid and malleable, with total lack of resistance, yet somehow staying in shape, perfectly controlled, and without even a tiny speck of breaking formation. The results are the same in every subject. The air around her tastes like victory, and she thrives in it. The discovery that chakra control is a faulty concept is what cracks the riddle surrounding Amaterasu. Chakra control is nothing but a different type of chakra nature, with which everyone has a varying degrees of affinity. It's what's needed to make yin release work, and while the two concepts are closely tied, they are not one and the same. The second she spots the marker for chakra control and sees that the makeup is almost identical to that of elemental affinities is what confirms the theory. She returns to experiments with new fervor, spends days trying to find the best way to mix her affinity with the black sludge that is Amaterasu. Once she discovers the most stable mixture, she sometimes, quite literally, burns through a steady number of subjects. All of them are carefully selected, deserving death for one reason or another, and Sakura stops worrying about what she's doing. Injecting live subjects with the stable mixture is just step one. They stop going up in flames, but can't make use of the power either. It makes her less. It's more or less peacefully coexisting within the bodies, even though the vicious nature of Amaterasu is not meant to be contained, and slowly burns through the pathways. If she ever finds a way to channel it properly, it's not a chakra she can carry for long. There is no storing it. Minor damages occur after 5 minutes, and the half an hour mark signals a complete collapse of the pathways. It's Conan who tells her that she's not allowed to coax the subjects into attempting to harness the power, and Sakura understands and acquiesces. It's too dangerous, and unless she finds a way to do it for them, she's stuck. She doesn't appreciate limitations. She really appreciates Sasori. She learns how to use chakra strings, and it takes her barely any time at all before she masters them. She'll never be as good as the puppet master who dedicated his entire life to exploring their incredibly versatile subject matter, but it's enough to remote control her subjects. He stays even after showing her how to make the technique work, and observes her fiddling with the peculiarities and gleefully setting black fire to forests surrounding Amagakure. He is, in her mind, for now, a good company, as Itachi is quiet, cold yet less reserved, curious not unlike a cat, and inquisitive and sharp. There is something unnatural about him that transcends humanity, even if his body is made of flesh and blood just like hers. It's the small things, like how still he is, the slight tilt of his head, how he rarely blinks, the deliberate carelessness of his actions, painting a strange contrast to how he never acts without purpose, precision, and perfection. It makes her fingers itch, a constant buzz whenever he is in her presence that makes it hard to concentrate at times. Amaterasu is a success. Sasori is an unknown. 4 months after the first donning of the cloak, her past catches up with her. It's Toby, panicked and flailing, who tells her to get her things and get dressed. They have to go and save Hidan now. Sakura equips her pouches, forces a needle into her flesh to replace half her chakra with Naruto's, and pockets 2 shots of Amaterasu for good measure. The second she finishes buttoning her cloak, the orange-masked man grabs onto her and makes her world swirl and fall out of focus. She closes her eyes on instinct, and when she reopens them, she's standing on the edge of a battlefield. An explosion so loud it almost shatters her eardrums, and rocks on the ground she's standing on greets her, and she charges forward, uses the smoke as a cover to jump up and intercepts Hidan's body before it can be torn apart by the following detonation. A split second later, Kakuzu joins them, and the sight of the three of them standing side by side with Sakura in the middle that makes her opponent stop and falter as the smoke clears. Kakashi is torn between fury and disbelief. Ino is downright incredulous. Shikamaru hates. Everyone seems to wait for a grand confrontation, long declarations, or for Sakura to explain herself. But truth be told, she's just so over all of this. She tells her two fellow members that their orders are to fall back, and mentally prepares to knock Hion out and just carry him if his bloodlust proves too strong when everything takes the turn for the worst. She can feel him before she can see him, and what used to be the rather simple task suddenly got a shitload more complicated. Sakura can outrun Kakashi. She cannot outrun the QB. The whole situation is vexing and stressful as she stared down not only at Team 10 plus Kakashi, but also Team 7 plus a few extra Konoha ninja, none of which look happy to see her. The red searing energy that pours from Naruto is bad news, so Sakura grabs Hidan by the collar of his cloak, unceremoniously throws him behind her, calling out for Toby and telling him to take the two of them back to the base. She is under no illusions that she can win a fight of proportions as epic as these, but Sakura can stall them best without Hidan being his chaotic self. A single glance tells her that Kakuzu is down to 3 hearts, so she gives an affirmative nod when he quietly asks her if she's going to manage. She doesn't honestly believe that he actually cares about her, but he operates under the strict code of maximum monetary value, and Sakura has always been a good investment. When it's just her and a small platoon of furious leaf nin, Naruto demands her, his voice shaking along with tears of fury leaking from his eyes. Sakura sighs because really, she's not one for grandiose speeches, and truthfully, she has left him behind a long time ago. She pulls a single black shot from her pouch and forces the needle under the skin of her left forearm for everyone to see. "We haven't been friends for a long time," she says, "and never were much of a team to begin with. You were so busy looking ahead that you failed to see what was happening behind you. I may have grown up in your shadow, but the one I throw can swallow you whole." She forms a single one-handed sign and whispers, "Amaterasu." Peace is a lost concept after that as events come thick and fast. Deidara is returned to the base by Toby as little more than a corpse. Sakura spends 3 days and 3 nights working on him without pause, eating soldier bills for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When he's presented to her, Deidara is a heap of scrap, more of a bundle of parts than a functioning organism, and fixing him is not a problem. She has to keep him alive, all separate parts of him, because she is not a miracle worker, and actual resurrection will most likely remain out of her reach forever. She manages, if barely. Sakura sleeps for a whole week after that, and is woken by the news that Sasuke won toe-to-toe with him, barely survives the confrontation, and is now hunting for Itachi. Her heart breaks at the implication, and she asks herself how she can mourn for a man she has never met. Toby disappears, which means she's received her ring at last. It bears the kanji for sky, shimmer in a calming slate blue, and paints her nails in a brilliant scarlet that makes her think of Tsunade. She meets Jiraiya for the first and last time a week after equipping her ring. It's not even on purpose. The old man interrupts a test run of her latest shot, Yakushi's regenerative powers perfectly supplementing her own. And it is her devotion for his former teammate that makes her step aside and leave him to the mercy of pain without attempting to engage him. That quarrel looks personal. She later returns to his corpse, taking his headband and seals it in a scroll. Sakura hands the scroll to a messenger nin, directs him towards Konoha, and hopes that it will be closure enough. Itachi is in her bed, and he's bleeding out. She doesn't ask questions. He doesn't answer. His necklace is missing, but there seems a peace. The morning after she fixed him, he's gone. 4 years have passed since their last meeting, and when she meets Sasuke again, she feels nothing. He's completely thunderstruck when he spots her next to Pain and Konan, with the other members milling about close by. His first reaction is, as always, anger, except she lacks the patience to deal with him, turns around, and leaves him to his own devices. He doesn't mean anything to her, hasn't meant anything to her for years. His departure had left a hole in her heart, but it was around the same time that she found the first journals. The hole had been stuffed and filled by the man he had run off with, a man who seemingly taught her more than he ever taught his own student. They're not recruiting members, so he's turned away, but is still allowed to act as an associate. There's a number of incidents that nearly turn to violence. When he first spots her using Amaterasu, he tries to attack her. Sasori is nearby and faster, and nearly strangles him. He spits curses at her, which only increases in ferocity and frequency after he stumbles upon her lab. It is his temper and nigh homicidal behavior towards her that gets him thrown out. Sakura doesn't mourn the loss. Her life falls apart after that. Pain attacks Konoha, eradicates the village, and Naruto talks to him into resurrecting everyone at the cost of his life. Akatsuki is without leadership, with Conan in mourning, and their ultimate purpose shatters into countless tiny pieces. They are nothing but a glorified mercenary group, and as such, they slowly drift apart. Some of the forcefully conscripted people leave immediately. Hidan and Kakuzu stay together in a move that surprises everyone. Deidara packs his things and flies away on a clay bird. Kisame decides to travel the world. Zetsu disappears much like Toby. Conan stays behind in a city and turns to trying to run it as well as she can. Sasori leaves last. He stands opposite of her, cloak discarded and dressed in his Suna garb, and hands her a thin, elongated box. It's a soft red ribbon made from high-quality silk, with two tiny golden bells dangling from each. It slithers through her fingers like water, the color the exact same shade as his own blood, which he used to coat her hands. He leaves without saying a word, and hours later, Sakura admires how the red contrasts the pale white of her skin as she ties it around her neck. It's time to leave for her as well, and she hates that she'd lost another home to the whims and power plays of men who think that they can change the world. The last of her savings are spent on 4 body scrolls, as well as another, small sealing scroll. She cannot bring her lab with her, but at least she will keep her host, shots, notes, and journals. Sakura finds herself oddly reluctant to lose the cloak. because despite everything, she thinks she's quite liked being part of something bigger, one in a group of misfits. However, it also paints a massive target on one's back, so the decision is easy even if she still keeps it and seals it away. Back out in the wild, Sakura feels lost and adrift, with no direction and nothing to look forward to. She's having a strange dreams that disorient her when she wakes up, and most days she doesn't know if she's just imagining the flashes she occasionally sees in front of her eyes or smells in her nose. It's like she can catch a whiff of people she can't name, even though she's all on her own. She wonders if she will ever be sound of mind again. She wonders if she ever was. She's in a small town somewhere in grass, replenishing her supplies, when she hears the news. The Go Dame Hokage is in a coma. Shimura Danzo succeeds her, and everyone is preparing for war. It's amazing how little one learns from about politics and the happenings of the world when stuck traveling from one place to another like a pitiful nomad. She doesn't know what happened to the Bijou, but apparently nobody ever bothered to return them, so a cage summit is imminent. None of that interests her. Sakura pays for a bag of takoyaki, jams a needle into the flesh of her thigh, and starts racing across the countryside. It takes her less than a day to get where she wants, and she slows down, and once she slows down, she greedily bites into her food while allowing her chakra to settle. From then on, it's a matter of stealth, which has never been a strong suit. So she waits until the sun goes down and recalls everything she knows about her former village. There are more patrols than she ever remembers, which makes her task noticeably harder. She slips in between cracks and sticks to the shadows, takes the fastest route to the hospital, and almost cackles in delight when she realizes that nobody ever bothered to remove her clearance. That cannot possibly be an accident, Sakura thinks as she slinks through a window, hides in a closet, and expands her senses. She is no censor by any means, but there's a small handful of signatures she would recognize anywhere. With dismay, she spots her objective in the high security wing, despairs over how she could possibly get past all the Anbu, until she notices that something about the entire situation is off. Getting closer makes it obvious enough. There are no guards. No guards whatsoever. It's so far beyond suspicious that Sakura wants to turn around and leave. With a quiet curse and increased paranoia, she closes in on her target. She makes it to the room without incident, opens the door, and slips inside. Illuminated by the moonlight, pale, wan, and old, is a woman who rests in her bed, and yet she still holds an ethereal beauty beyond compare. Biting her lip, Sakura walks closer and settles down on the right side of her bed, facing the door, before placing her flat palm on her forehead, right on top of her purple byakugo, and feels. It's more than a mere chakra exhaustion, she realizes. The body has to have gone into shock at some point, judging from the damage in the pathways. Likely a result of a sudden and forceful expulsion of all her chakra, save for a tiny reserve to keep her alive. Not many actions could have caused this, but Sakura is willing to bet that the woman sacrificed herself for her village and her people. It's a kind of devotion and altruism that's completely foreign to Sakura. Yet she is no stranger to devotion in general. It's why she's here after all. With a sense of care and gentleness she rarely displays, she sends her chakra into the blood system, taking in the pleasant tingle she feels once her essence makes contact with a fresh and soothing cool, minty chakra that's entirely Tsunade and gets to work. She weaves strands of her chakra around damages to her pathway, patches them up, and sends bursts of energy to various areas of her body, repairs liver damage that's so old and established it must have been irreparable for the older women, revitalizes her inner workings, repairs skin, and does that and much more. So much more than anyone else could have done. Before her eyes, wrinkles smooth out, deep furrows and old lines fade. Grey turns to blonde, age reverts to youth. When she's done, Sakura carefully removes a scratched headband from her head and ties it around Tsunade's wrists. Then she gets off the bed to lean over, as pink strands tinkle her newly rejuvenated skin. Her lips gently meet the purple diamond, and every single machine she is connected to starts beeping widely. When she wakes, it is with memory of a tinkling bell, soft lips on her forehead, and a crisp, sharp smell that reminds her of the days between winter and spring. When she opens her eyes, no one is there, but a memory remains. Hey fishies, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the second chapter on the Infinite Curious Woman. We got one more chapter left. I like to see Sakura's progress. It's good progress. I like it. To be fair, I'm a fan of Sakura-centric fics because, she's such a undeveloped character in my eyes. Like, sure, Sasuke has his development, Naruto obviously have his development, Hinata eventually got his development, but like Sakura, she's always left to the side, and I really just like that character development. Like I like to think fanfics exist to improve or fill in the gaps of the original work. So for like My Hero, it's that incompleteness in depth. There's not much time to have depth of character, or it sometimes feels hollow. Same with Naruto, except that there's depth of character, but there's rarely spent some time on individual traits, on individual characters. Can't talk about Harry Potter or the DC verse or Danny Phantom, but I feel like it's the same deal there. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!